My gosh.
Oh, you
Okay.
joined by phone. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for trying to get that working. Sorry about all that. We
Yeah.
have another link we can try after if this fails, but then yeah, maybe that'll be our last
I'm
time.
gonna make this work. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're
So
nice and clear now.
we've been having windstorms that are cutting out our power here, and I think
Oh,
so my computer just lost power. But now this is working.
wow. It's just the culmination of things. Well, thanks for
Hmm.
calling in. Yeah, just to continue where we were talking before, found out that Joe makes a bunch of money counting cards, and that has
On
been
the
enough to
plane, yeah.
support a family and go on vacations and do different game development projects. So when you were talking offhand about just making this thing work, one of the questions I have for you that maybe we can get into after some of the background and how you sort of ended up in that direction is like, this feels like a very motivating thing for you. Like, there's this thing, I just want to make it work, whether it's like with your brother and you're just selling stuff on eBay and like flipping textbooks when you're younger, or like quitting a software job to do card counting. So,
Right. That's
yeah,
what I did for a long time.
yeah. So I'm curious, like, is there anything particular about that sort of motivation that seems to fit through a lot of the things you've done, where it's like, can this work? I don't know, I'm going to do it. And if that's too vague of a question, I'd be happy to start talking about how you started card counting too.
Yeah, that's definitely the way my mind works. I get this idea of a way to make a living, and I focus so hard on it and try every way possible until I kind of force it through. I
Yeah.
make it work. Like I did that with e-commerce for years right after college, and then we moved to Seattle, and I did it with game development, and then as a way to earn side income, I did it with card counting and blackjack
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And how did you even end up choosing that one? Because I feel like that's the thing everyone hears about. They hear about like, oh, that one MIT group or that one Christian group or whatever that all just count cards and make
That's
money.
right.
And it's like, yeah, why did you think that's the one when you could have just as easily been like, I'm going to go down this tech sector path and make a bunch of money in Seattle, which is like a very classic thing for a lot of people with your background to do.
More
That's
easily. You
right.
could have more easily done the
Yes,
software thing.
exactly. You did the harder
For
thing for
sure.
potentially less, but still,
Looking
it's
back,
way
that's
cooler.
100% true. Um, most of my friends that moved out to Seattle when I did, they were working at Amazon or working at Microsoft. And I saw the hours that they were having to work, and I was thinking, well, maybe I can be a little more flexible and kind of make my own schedule as I've always done on eBay and Amazon selling. And it started out as a pipe dream, and it just snowballed, and things worked out perfect with our location geographically. Like I was 10 minutes from a bunch of small card rooms in Seattle, and I could drive anytime during the day and go put a few hours in at the little casino. And I started playing more and more and studying more and more and practicing more and more. And I realized it was a legitimate way to earn income at any hour of the day. And I I kind of liked that it was just a unique thing. It
Yeah.
was something that I had never thought was possible for years. It kind of sounded like a myth. Like everybody had talked about that movie 21 and the MIT blackjack team, but nobody I knew did it.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to discover it for myself, look at the data, and prove that it could work. And I did. I've always been interested in like statistics and building your own models, simulating stuff, but I wanted to see it in person to
Yeah.
prove my simulations correct.
Yeah. That's
So I put
interesting.
thousands of hours in it.
Yeah. No, let's definitely get more into that. But that's the thing that I think I saw that it made me think like, this isn't really about computers, but I still would love to have Joe on Computation Club because this feels like very much a shared motivation among a bunch of like math and computers, where it's like trying to come up with something new and something different that you can just like force into existence if you work hard enough at it and a long enough time, where you sort of know a direction you're going but don't know what it fully looks like. um
Yeah, it's one thing
that's
to see it on your computer and see how the statistics are supposed to play out. That was the first thing I ever did, was download software called CVCX by Norm Wattenberger. I think he released it in the 90s. And it's one of the first card counting simulations that there ever was. And I played a lot with that for weeks, and I simulated a bunch of different strategies, but I just wasn't satisfied with the simulation. I wanted to see it come true in the real world.
Yeah, the real thing. And it's safe to say that not all of your different family members or other people had such a rosy disposition about this idea of going and making money at casinos, right? Isn't it
Nobody
funny
did.
that some people still don't think it's a real job? They think you're just like an addict who's losing money or something.
They don't think that, but yeah, they definitely don't consider it a real job or a real way to earn income. And I'm used to it by now. Like, I don't try to explain it over the holidays anymore. I just totally accept that they don't understand it, and that's fine. But I do have an older brother who plays poker, and he totally gets it.
How good are the
jumping
people?
into
Kuchep, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, so jumping into the role of one of your relatives at Thanksgiving, asking about what you do, I'm curious if there's like I guess like a concern about like, how do I put, oh my God, I'm trying to figure out like career continuity. That's the word I was looking for, right? Where like if this ends up not working out, or if like, I don't know, the card rooms you're going to, catch wind of what you're doing,
Right.
jumping back into the more traditional, like, oh yeah, I'm just doing tech sector work. Is there like a concern that you might not be able to do that, or
That I might not be able to rejoin like a tech job?
yeah, or like yeah, just because like, I wonder if like employers will even be like, oh, what have you been doing for the last couple of years?
Yeah, that's definitely a concern I've talked about with people and my brothers. It definitely won't look good on a resume to have a giant gap and said advantage gambling income for 3 years. It depends on which state you're in. Some people might be more understanding. I was not as concerned about that. That's why I went forward with it. But I definitely have a lot of family that still to this day thinks I was kind of insane to take the leap in a totally different direction. But I think there are employers who would understand it for sure. I just have to search a little bit harder.
Yeah. Well, okay,
Makes sense.
Oh yeah. Max, you can go for your question if you want, but I've got another one too.
Yeah, I just, for my own understanding, I wanted to ask, but how good are the people you're beating? Like, are you playing against other like professionals or other people who are good at what they're doing? Or are you just kind of like clearing up the table of, schmucks like me?
In blackjack?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I forgot to say. So yeah, it's not actually against other people, Max. Maybe Joe, we can talk about
Can you explain just the mechanics of
what the game is
a little bit,
and what you're doing at like a general level?
Absolutely. So blackjack is 21, if you've ever heard of the card game 21, and a dealer who works for the casino is standing across the table from you. He deals you 2 cards and he gets 2 cards. And if the total is less than 21, then you have a choice to either get a new card or stay with the amount of cards you have, and you will hit or stand. And if you go over 21, you bust and you lose your money. And then the dealer tries to hit or stand, and if he goes over 21, he busts if you haven't already busted. And that's kind of like a very small description. It's a very simple game. You could play it and learn to play it in a few minutes.
And if neither of you bust, the higher one wins, right?
That's right. If neither of you bust, the higher one wins.
Interesting.
And there's a very simple strategy that you can download off the internet or look on your phone. It's called Basic Strategy, and it gives you an exact option whether you hit or stand every single time. You could play like a robot. And that gives you 49% against the casino. So for every dollar you bet, you're going to get 99 cents back.
Yeah. Yeah. So
but when you
play,
count,
you lose. So how
right.
do you make money off this? Yeah.
When you count cards and you start to learn the history of what's been dealt in the deck and how to keep track of the cards in your head, it raises your advantage to about 51.5%. So for every dollar you bet, you're getting $1.02 approximately. And over time, you bet higher. Instead of betting $1 a hand, you're betting $1,000 a hand. So you're getting $1,020 for every bet, approximately.
And this is exploiting the fact that the shuffling isn't like perfect random after every hand, right?
That's right.
That's the thing you're using as your tool here for leverage.
They deal from a set deck of two decks of cards or 6 decks of cards, and it works no matter how many decks they're using. You just keep track of it in your head, and you change your strategy based off of how many certain cards have been dealt. Whether are you going to hit or stand? Well, they just dealt a bunch of aces and kings, so now you're going to change. It's different. It varies based off of your counting inside your head.
Yeah, and then just to add a little bit of color to this, there are also different kind of mitigation strategies at different casinos, right? So you have some that shuffle differently, some that have more or fewer decks, all these different things you can explain better. And I
different
don't understand,
rules. Yeah,
there are different strategies and nuances based on the place. And it's not like you're just following a specific formula, even though you do have strategies and mental models for counting cards, but you do need to be a bit creative at different casinos and different tactics in certain scenarios, right?
That's right. And that's where the real skill comes in. The actual beating the card game becomes robotic pretty quickly. The real skill comes in reading the casino, knowing how good they are at backing you off or detecting that you're counting cards, and how long increasing your longevity for how long you can play and how much you can bet. That's where the real skill comes in over time.
Okay, one follow-up question. If I was involved in the casino industry, I would have used computer vision to figure out who you are a long time ago after I detected that you did better than 49%, over the course of more than 100 games at my casino, and then you would not be allowed back in. So do you have to change? I'm sure they're doing this. Do you have to change casinos every X months or something? How do you reckon with that?
Yes, I travel a lot. I'll fly to a different region, bounce around, and you would be shocked at how lazy casinos can be. Very lazy. Like they do have these systems in place to check and back off card counters. Sometimes they'll even be as aggressive to trespass you from their property. But over the years, people get very lazy and they just stop doing it for a while, and they stop caring about it, really.
Okay.
And so I'll just play and play until they tell me to stop at some place. One place I've played over 400 hours and they still have never backed me off.
And you probably made a bunch of money off of them too. Whoever is running the place is not getting a promotion whatever year you're there.
That's right. And I have been tipping, but that's not the reason why I'm staying there. They just don't really seem to think card counting works anymore. It's a remote area of the country, and they've forgotten that math is a thing.
That's fascinating. So, Joey, this is not necessarily true of all members of our group, but at least some of them right now have done, like Arjun in particular, I don't know about other folks, have done some software reverse engineering and exploitation. And there are so many parallels to the things that you're talking about here, where in a lot of scenarios, it's like you have a system in front of you, you take some time to learn what it is, and then you try to find your best strategy to find any loopholes or things that you can do. And that's a lot more like one-off repeatable. It's not like a thing you keep playing because you use the computer to do that, but the sort of search for an exploit, it's really similar in that way. So is this something you've ever dabbled with or been curious about or explored? Just a personal interest question for me. Like computer hacking and stuff.
Hacking, yes. More in my graduate college years because I had to for classes, but I haven't done it much since then. My information security classes, it was a lot of fun trying to. I bet you guys would be the guys I should go to relearn that skill.
Yeah, sure. If you're curious, we can chat about it at some point. One question I have is,
here's a question, actually, if I could cut in.
Please do.
I keep hearing everyone basically ask the same question, which seems to, how the heck can you actually do this? Which seems to be restating, I didn't think that you could actually do this. And so I'll take my hat off and say, good job for doing what I haven't been able to do. But I understand that you're making software or a video game, yes?
That's right. Yeah, that is my ultimate goal.
Along that lines, if what you're able to do with cards is counting and finding possibilities, and that's something that you can dabble with along with house rules and work around in order to make money, I have to ask, what interests you about video games? What draws you to that if you're able to do this? If you don't mind me changing the subject.
Oh, no problem at all. I've always loved video games. That's been my favorite thing to do when I'm not having to earn a living, pay the bills, spend time with my family and kids and everything. And I'm just so fascinated by what makes a great video game today. Like what do people want to play that is entertaining, good for you, healthy for you mentally, but just creates a great time, like a great way to spend your time. I truly believe there are some amazing video games out there that are one of the best ways to spend your extra time. A lot of people disagree with me on that as we've gotten older and we have so many responsibilities, but I still love to play video games, make video games. And playing a card game for a living has caused me to think about, statistically, like inside of a casino, people are playing these very mundane games for hours and hours and hours. And I don't really understand it. I guess it's because it can be kind of addicting, even though they're losing money, which is kind of sad. But I always want to use what I'm learning about these games that are addicting and trying to turn that into my own game that is not addicting, but can use some of those patterns and behaviors to my advantage as a game developer, and see what makes you want to engage more with a game, if that makes any sense. I don't know. That's a long, convoluted way to answer that question about game development, but I'm constantly using things I'm learning in my life and in blackjack and card counting and other games that I'm discovering inside the casino. There's tons of games in most casinos all over America. And I'm trying to develop a game that I would never make a gambling game. I would never work for the other side, but a game that makes you want to engage with it and is fun and entertaining and educating sort of way. And that's what I'm building.
Well, there are
right
enough
now.
video games that are out there that are trying to be good. And you see people like Blizzard trying to find the next Fortnite, or companies that are taking games that are already successful and trying to somehow steal the Fortnite thunder. So clearly people are out there with the same question saying, geez, how do I grab that same thunder these morons over here found with this simple shoot everybody, be the last man standing game? And I can get why they do that, but what are the games that reach on out and grab you? And have you found any commonality in terms of seeing which games are actually working? And I'm throwing this out within the context, if you say, look at Skyrim or some of these other open world games where you just walk around and interact with the environment, interesting, but after a certain point, it's like, well, I've been an ogre or a lizard for a couple of minutes.
Right.
That's not really doing it for me. My step-grandson was in WoW and found a system where he went on in, cleared out the auction house of every, say something was on sale for prices between 1 and 10, bought everything 9 and under, and then relisted it for 10, artificially making the market look as though the actual product price was 10, and in essence made up the difference between whatever he bought and 10 on everything that he sold, basically doing stock market arbitration within
Inside
WoW.
WoW.
And the possibility of making that happen is pretty wild. Even the cat and game mouse of, say, there are some companies that allow people to mod their software, but it also allows some software developers to throw in hacks so they can jump around on a map. And so there's clearly a certain point where there's the design of the actual game, and then being able to thwart the people who are clever at basically getting in and being more clever than the actual software.
Yeah.
So when you look on around and you say, holy smokes, what are these people doing? This looks pretty interesting. Are there any particular examples of games that speak to you more so than others?
Absolutely. I mean, I love card games. Obviously, Hearthstone, I think, is one of the greatest virtual card games that has been made. You mentioned Blizzard, and I think they really found something pretty great with that one. Slay the Spire is a really good one too. I do love the open world RPGs. It's a very different beast. The Witcher is one of my favorites, just because I love the open world that they built. I love the Zelda games. I think they're a great balance of a lot of things: puzzle solving, art, and open world. I haven't been able to play as much as I used to, unfortunately. The new Baldur's Gate game is very good, but I do like action games more than turn-based, believe it or not. A lot of people in my family make fun of me for that. I'm not sure what sort of games you guys play, but those are just a few that I've been playing.
Maybe this is a good time to get into your game then. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about what you're building, how long you've been building it, and what your sort of grand vision is with this game?
Yeah, so the game is Arn's Gift. It's an action RPG. It is a short narrative, interactive playthrough with light combat and puzzle solving and exploration, and it's really an art masterpiece from Kristen, my wife. She's the artist who's been building this world for years now, and it's like a visual, unique art piece, and also the story we're trying to tell. We were writing a novel originally, and while I was working on my computer science degree, we decided to turn it into a video game because I was programming, she was drawing and creating these incredible art pieces, and we just kind of joined forces.
Can you
right now,
name again, and do you have like a Steam page or something?
Yes, it's Aron's Gift, ARON''S Gift, and we're on Steam, but it's not released. We're thinking about doing early access, and it'll also be on PlayStation. We have our PlayStation development kit.
Well, I just put a link to it in the chat, by the way, so people can click that.
We also link to it on the webpage.
Oh, true. So one question I have that I think blends both the game development and the card counting is both of these things are not very clear. Like, it's not obvious if you say to someone, I'm making a game or I'm going to go card count, that you're going to be successful with it, right? On first blush. And it's also not a type of thing that you're just going to be a natural talent at and succeed immediately, right? Both of these things take considerable focus and work, and likely, especially at the beginning, like confusion or derision from other people. And in some ways, I see this as like similar to hacking or developing some weird software or doing a PhD. And I'm curious, what is it about these scenarios where you can sort of be like, here's where I want to get to, and here's where I start, and there's a huge gulf, and you just start like walking through whatever path that takes. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what is
Yeah.
it that makes you want to do that and still approach these things that take a long time before there's any sort of real payoff, if there even is one? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was just knowing that I was comfortable spending many hours programming for the video game's sake. And I just really enjoy the problem solving, all the elements that go into that. I think it can be an amazing art form and an incredible um, way to just solve problems and continue bettering your mind. I think game development's one of the best.
How,
And
oh, sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
What were you going to finish a thought or?
I was going to say it's a similar thing that I did with advantage play or card counting. There's a lot of creativity and problem solving.
Okay. I'm curious. I'm curious how long, or sorry, how large your team is and how long you've been working on it. And a bit of context for why I'm asking the question is that so I'm doing my PhD in games.
Cool.
And so like I have a lot of game design knowledge, but it's very abstract because I've never actually worked in the industry. And so I'm really curious right now of like, oh, like, hey, what does it actually look like on a day-to-day like indie game dev? Or like, yeah, like what are the challenges actual indie game devs face insofar as like, yeah, like, okay, how long does it take to make a game at the level you're making it at? How many, how large does the team have to be, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, the team I'm working with right now is just two. It's just me.
You and your wife, you said, or
That's right. Yeah, we've had some people come in and help, like giving advice and doing code reviews, peer reviews, things like that. I've taken our builds to some hack nights and hackathons where I did some quality assurance testing, play testing, and also just showing people my project. But other than that, yeah, it's just us two. And it's taken thousands of hours and we still haven't finished. So that's because we give in to the scope creep. I don't know if you've heard that term when you're building software, but
absolutely.
yeah, we tend to allow scope creep to do its thing as long as we think the features are that good and they test well at conventions. We've done a lot of play testing at video game conventions to see what people like. Is the game worth playing? And are they able to get through everything that we're trying to let the player get through? And that's helped a lot. The playtesting helped a ton. As a small team, we really needed that over the years. But usually the teams are bigger. I feel like after going to Seattle, I was part of the Seattle indie developer community for 5 years, and I noticed that we're a little bit more reclusive, smaller team in the way that we approach game development. Usually it's between 2 to 5 people, and that still takes thousands of hours to develop a good solid game, and that's including marketing and release and bug fixing whenever it's done. But yeah, I'm not sure if you want to know like our day to day, how we're able to work on it, but
yeah, hit me.
Yeah, so I'll work mostly on programming and like fixing bugs from our last convention, from our last play test is a lot of my several hours. And then I'll take 2 more hours in developing a feature that we're working on, like our our inventory right now is one that I'm constantly working on. And until that is rock solid, I have to spend 2-3 hours a day working on that. And then I have to do art integration, which is another 2 hours. And the way Kristen builds it is she does gigantic Photoshop files of like 20-30,000 pixels, and I have to figure out how to break that down, put it in the engine. We use Unity engine, and I program in C# for everything. And the art integration was the thing that took the most hours. I probably spent close to 1,500 hours just figuring out how we were going to go from conceptual art to on-screen moving in the engine, and you just got to iterate so many times to see what works. But sorry, it's a little abstract way to answer the question, but that is...
No, not really. When you take a look at the way graphics has moved in the gaming engines that are out there, actually what you're talking about is pretty critical. How do you develop something from the ground on up in a way that integrates in with the technology that's out there in such a way that you're not just talking so hypothetical or pie in the sky you can't implement. If you get so far down into the details, at a certain point you lose the vision of the forest for looking at the trees at the roots.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very tough balance to make.
Yeah, and developing that process can take a long time, and until you find it, you find what's comfortable for your team, for the people you work with, and then you can just keep iterating and building more content, more features.
So,
and thankfully, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
No, go for it. You're good.
I was going to say, thankfully, we are past that phase, but that initial phase in game development can take a long time until you and your team are comfortable with going from concept to working on screen.
So, Joey, one thing I'm curious about that I think ties some of these things together is we're sort of talking about a lot of the really good parts and the cool parts, right? Like, you've set up a life where you guys can work on this game that you love and can work on as long as you want. You have the card counting, which is also super interesting and gives you enough runway for whatever. And I know it hasn't always been easy. And yes, you have these workflows and these day-to-days, but I want to know sort of what happens when things are really bad and you're questioning these things and don't have any peers to really talk to about what your life is even like. For example, we haven't talked about like the times you've literally been illegally pinned by police officers when they pull your counting thing in the middle of a thing. We haven't talked about like what happens when the art integration completely fails and takes way longer than you think. Like, yeah, what happens in those moments when it's just a complete disaster? Like why? Yeah,
I've been
mentally,
through...
and also if you want to share any stories, we've got like 10 minutes left, I would say. And you guys can all stay on talking longer, but I've got to leave at 6.
For sure. I've been through, one of the worst downturns in my life 3 years ago, where we were on a long road trip, and within a span of about 2 weeks, we totaled our car near Las Vegas with the kids in the car, and then we were robbed a week after that. I lost a big significant portion of our bankroll, and then I was pinned on a curb by a police officer who was working for the casino at the time. He was an off-duty police officer, and it turned out he was just kind of confused about what he was supposed to do. And he physically assaulted me and put me on the curb 3 times right in front of my family. And that really put me in a low point in my life where I was questioning, like, have I made all the wrong decisions? And thankfully I was able to overcome it, because I have built a pretty good network of people that I've met online who do advantage play and have dealt nothing quite as extreme as that in just 2 weeks, getting your car totaled, getting robbed, and getting assaulted. But they have dealt with some major negative scenarios from casinos who are uninformed or ignorant about the law, and about what's really going on. You're not really offending them personally. You're just playing a game that they're allowing you to play, and you're winning at it. You're playing it in a smart way. They should never treat you like a criminal. But yeah, I have lots of stories of being backed off or treated very unfairly by casinos, to put it lightly.
Yeah, that's terrible. It's like, yeah, I remember listening to some of your other podcasts about those 2 weeks, and it's still like kind of unbelievable for me. So I'm sure there's a lot more detail that we can share now if people are curious, but there are definitely places to look this up too. But yeah,
Yes.
this feels, not to be blasé about it, but it feels like if you took the third-year PhD student who's feeling demoralized about their advisor saying you have to do another semester and you have to teach this class and TA this thing and publish a paper instead of doing your research. It feels like something like that, but like 1,000 times worse or something. But the mental structure is kind of similar. It's like you're on your journey, you have a major setback, and
That's
yeah,
right. I think the key is making sure you talk to people about it, make sure you have a network of people that you trust, and you know their advice is sound, and just keep trying to get help. And
Yeah.
sometimes you'll find the wrong person and it feels like another setback and they're not really helping. You just keep trying and find somebody that you respect, a good mentor. That's huge in the world of software development too. You'll go through highs and lows for sure.
That's
Nothing
fine.
quite as criminal as Advantage play sometimes.
Joe, has your interest in Advantage play, has it changed the way that you approach game design at all? Like, have you designed your game so that somebody who wants to be highly strategic in a way that's similar to how you play blackjack might be able to? Is that something you think about?
Yeah, for sure. Because I've learned so much about what people value with their time or with their currency or whatever they're doing in a game. There's a major disconnect in what you think is going to happen and what statistically is going to happen over time. Like, you'll be playing a game, for instance, and I don't know, bust open a crate or something, or you beat a boss and they give you this item or something, and it's just a random number a lot of times. And what happens in one scenario, people think, oh, this is just going to continue to happen. It's just a human instinct, and it's just not true. It's not the way statistics work. That's a very simplified example, but I've learned so much by repeating the same card game or the same behavior inside a casino and learning how expected value works and how to actually build a winning strategy over time. It's very, very different. And I use that in my game design all the time, for sure.
Fascinating. Kutu, please let me know if you want to interrupt because I know you had a question. But Joe, has your interest in either game design or card counting or anything, like, has it waned in these areas? Do you ever get worried of like, oh, what if I get bored of this thing that's my main income? Like, or is that just not even a concern?
It has definitely. The behavior of card counting for 2,000 hours can definitely be draining, and you got to find other things to keep it interesting. And getting backed off all the time kind of naturally forces you to be creative and find different areas. I do love to travel. My love for travel has never waned, so to speak, but the actual practice of playing the same game for thousands of hours, of course, decreases over time, and you start looking for other areas. And because I built my network, I was able to find other forms of advantage play inside the casino too, where you can earn income as well. And that helps to mix it up and keep it more mentally doable for me. But game development and software development, I actually love, and I wish I could spend more time doing it. I just, if you haven't been able to tell from my history of the way I make a living, I don't do well working for a company or having like somebody who's constantly checking in on me and making my schedule for me. I have a very flexible schedule, and so that has kind of changed the way I have to approach a lot of projects. And but I've never lost interest in software development. That's what I want to do for a living. I think because I'm so bad at working for like a corporation, that's why I have taken to this other form of earning income.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. I do have to run in a moment, so I'm not trying to end the call, but I would just like to say thanks so much for rescheduling, coming to chat with this show. This has been
Yeah.
extremely unique and interesting, and I've had a lot of fun with it. I hope others have as well. I've got to head off
Yeah.
now. If people want to keep talking, by all means, please continue. So yeah, again, thank you.
Great to see you again, Jacob.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
We'll have to catch up.
actually, as the host, have to go soon too. But maybe we can do one more question. I think Kutab, did you have a last question?
I actually do. I am maybe it's a bit of a two-part question. Sorry about that. So
Sure.
I'm interested in like interning for an indie game company, and I'm wondering like what game conferences do you go to? Like where should I go for like networking purposes? And then also like, how to best show my skills. I think one issue is that I actually work on educational games, and so I'm a little afraid that I'll be like, I know a bunch about educational games, but not like action games or what have you. But yeah, so like where do indie games typically hang out? Where can I meet them? And then also like how can I show my skills best?
Yeah, I go to GDC in San Francisco almost every year. I haven't been in the past 2 years, but that has been the best networking event for me as a developer. Their prices for their passes are just absurd. I would not recommend buying the pass, but you can still go to the convention and go to the expo. I think it's a lot cheaper. And as long as you send some emails in advance or find some people you want to talk to, you'll basically be able to experience all the perks of networking of that convention without actually buying that insanely priced pass.
My advisor would be able to get one for me. So
yeah, that would be excellent if you can get that. And I go to a lot of the gaming conventions, and with a plan of networking. I do PAX West, which I think is around the fall, and I'll just ask the developers, like, who's the developer, like who's the lead on this project, and try to get to know them if it's something I'm really interested in. Normally PAX is not like a networking convention, but it totally can be if you know who you want to talk to, which company. And showing off.
I think Boston actually has PAX East, so that might be pretty easy for me to go to.
Oh yeah, I've been to PAX East twice. I love that convention too. Same sort of thing. Showing your work, we like to have like an iPad ready at all times, so you can just pull it out. Usually I'll just like introduce myself if there's time to talk, and if they want to take a look at my project, I'll just pull out an iPad or your phone and show what you're working on. Lately we've had the Steam Deck, which is really nice. I don't know if you've ported anything to the Steam Deck, but it's very simple to get a .exe file working on the Steam Deck, and it has nice controls, and you can just present any game that works in Linux. You can present it on a Steam Deck really quickly, and they can use thumbsticks or play the game very easily. So that's the way I would do it nowadays. If you want to show somebody
I use
your
Godot
game
on Linux, so that's easy.
Nice. Yeah, very nice. I wish we would have started down the Godot road, but we started down the Unity road years ago, and now we can't get off. We're kind of stuck with Unity.
Cool, Joe, this was really fun. Thank you for joining us. You know, it's fun to do events that are a little bit off the typical math CS route. If people are interested in you know, what you're working on, should they just email you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to chat more?
Email would be great. Yeah, I can give you a link, or I don't know if Jacob has given you my email.
Jacob probably has it. So Jacob can post it. I'll tell him to put it in Slack, and then if anyone has any questions, they can follow up.
That would be perfect. Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great. It was great to talk to you guys.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.